I'm Captain Cliff, and you're listening to the History of Aviation podcast.
Hello and welcome to the History of Aviation podcast. I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for making us a part of your day. In this episode 85, we're going to be jumping into the wild stunt of the Hacienda Hotel's non-stop endurance flight in Las Vegas. But first off, as always, I'm joined by a bunch of great guys here, starting with Mr. Will D. How you doing, Will?
Doing fantastic. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about this today.
And I'm also joined, as always, by Mr. Julien Martinson. Julien been away for us for a bit there. What you got going on?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back on the podcast. It's great to be here and to discuss some of the history of aviation. And it's just a pleasure to participate with all these skilled and knowledgeable people. And I'm looking forward to a great podcast today.
Good deal. And pushing all the buttons, turning all the knob, and joining us on the podcast, as always, is our producer, Mr. Shae Jones. How's it going, Shae?
Oh, not much. Trying to relearn this program here. It's been a while, but we'll get there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we've discussed this on a previous episode covering the 172, but the wild stunt of the Hacienda Hotel for 64 days. Pilot Robert Tim and John Cook kept a modified Cessna 172 in the air without landing, refueling from a truck on the ground, turning a small Las Vegas hotel into a legend. So Will Diener jumping into this, setting the scene. It's Vegas. It's the Hacienda Hotel. It's a hustle and bustle and a crazy idea.
It certainly was an exciting one to talk about. It's Vegas in the late 50s. The strip is growing. The Hacienda's just gone up, but they're way in the back. I think they're on the south end. Nobody really cares much about them. They're a low roller place. And they need something big to put them on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, who comes up with this kind of Vegas, of course. Vegas is always going to have something extremely wild to do. But yeah, I mean, just initially, Shae, me and you have talked about this, just not on the air.
Yeah.
Just about how wild the whole thing was.
Yeah, I think you were the one that brought it up. I forget how it, like what the pretext was for it actually coming out, but I was not very believing of it. I remember that.
It is one that it's easy not to believe.
Yeah. There's many questions. Food, bathrooms, like the works,
We've got a lot to get into for sure, but we talk about the pilots. So really not the characters of the whole thing. Warren Doc Bailey, Warren Bailey they called him, was the owner of the Hacienda Hotel, and he was obsessed with publicity and wild ideas for employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a guy working for him named Robert Tim. They called him Bob. He was a World War II pilot, a bomber pilot, and he turned into a slot machine mechanic after the war. He was working for Warren Doc Bailey, and amongst the idea, he was part of the crew.
Yeah, and then you bring John Cook in, mechanic and pilot from Alamo Aviation, who become Tim's co-pilot, with this attempt.
Yep.
100%. And hang on a second, guys. I'm actually gonna have to do something with this light. It's killing me. I can't even see my computer screen. I'm gonna turn it. Wait, there we go.
So is that kind of what you guys want to do? You guys want to bounce from one person?
Yeah, they're showing us. But the problem is, I had this bright ass light in my face, and I literally couldn't see my computer screen to read. Jack, go ahead and jump in on that. We'll jump into the marketing and charity angle.
Sure.
Now I can see my screen. So,
all right. So Tim pitches an endurance flight to the Hacienda Hotel. Decided that it'd be a good idea to take an airplane on the longest extended endurance flight possible without ever landing. And he pitches it to the hotel, decides to paint the Hacienda Hotel right on the side of the airplane to grab national headlines. it takes it more than a, excuse me, it makes it more of a.
I feel like
My bad.
rather than like, hey, I got an idea. I feel like it was more like, hey, I got an idea, guys. And then they're like, yeah, let's go with it. I think the guy was hanging out with our last person we were talking about last time with the booze.
Hemingway, yeah.
I mean, that, that almost in itself is almost like modern day NASCAR style.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's strap the logo to the side of the plane and see how long we can fly it for.
Yeah. They ended up attaching it to a fundraiser too for the Run-In Cancer Fund, and where people were donating, kind of putting in bets, guessing to see how long the plane was going to stay in the air.
It's Vegas. You got to do that.
I wonder if this was the precursor to those planes that pull the banners behind the planes that have advertisements on there.
Maybe
I wonder
so.
if this was the precursor to that.
Could very well be. I'm not 100% sure if banners were around back then or not, but yeah. Prior refueling endurance records in the U.S. Southwest. By mid 1958, another Cessna 172, the old Scotchman, has pushed the record about 50 days. So Tim and Cook knew they were going to have to do good to beat this record, and they did, but they really didn't beat it by much.
Yeah.
They definitely knew they had to beat it. They had to go a little bit beyond. But I think previously they were up in the air for 50 days, which had been about 4 days longer than the previous standing endurance flight. So they
10 days. They were 64 days, so they were 10 days and 14 days roughly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But 64 days in a Cessna, they pull it off. Only get everybody
flying in
stops.
something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just imagine flying in something that size, the size of a small car, for more than 2 months without landing once.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to get everybody's take on. I really don't know. I mean, there's got to be some psychological. I mean, by day 10, there's got to be some psychological issues.
Oh yeah.
What's your take on that, Will? I mean, what would it be like for you? To sit in a Cessna 172 for 64 days straight.
I think we should also preface this also. Will, you've been back to Brazil, right? I'm assuming in your life. Depending on where you're flying from, that's easily a 9 or 10 or 11-hour flight, depending on the plane and in which direction you're going. So that's remember how you felt then. Imagine how you would have felt after 10 days,
Yeah. And even that being said, I think the longest I was in flying back and forth to Brazil was in a 767 from South Florida to South Brazil. And you're sitting in a seat.
That's about 6-7 hours. Yeah.
I have a hallway that I can walk up and down on. I've got a laboratory 100%. I could use. I can't imagine having to do that. So, anybody listening to the last podcast, I'm a big motorsport guy. So I'm a huge fan of endurance racing. And that alone is one of those things where it's just shocking. You're behind the wheel of a 1,000 horsepower machine for 24 hours straight across 3 or 4 different stints. And that seems tough enough, let alone being in an aircraft for 2 1/4 of a month, 2 months and a quarter. That is,
yeah.
I don't know how I would feel about that. Like Shae mentioned at the beginning, what's the bathroom situation like?
Yeah, we would definitely get.
For sure.
We're definitely going to get into that shortly, but I also want to ask the listeners, leave us in the comment section. What would be your headspace after being in a Cessna 172 for 64 days? Julien, what would be your headspace after being literally in a Cessna 172 for 64 days?
Well, I have to say, when I was a kid, I did fly in a Cessna, and it really is just like that. It's like sitting in a small car, and there's not a lot of room. And but I just wanted to underline the courage that these gentlemen have to come up with the idea and to overcome the logistics of it. Aircrafts rely on fuel, and so they have to obtain that fuel, and typically an aircraft will come with with a fuel aircrafter that will fly above, and the fuel will descend through a hose. But in this case, they did the opposite, and the fuel was brought up with a pickup truck, and the fuel was somehow sucked or pushed up into the aircraft. And then you have the logistics of the food and the washroom and taking breaks and taking shifts and rotating pilot duties and navigation duties. So just the whole concept of the whole stunt was is very impressive. But it also goes to underline the courage that the aviation industry has for all kinds of levels, because it started then with the aircraft pulling banners, and then now we have aircraft that are painted with advertising for Red Bull and so forth. And so aviation has done a lot in the terms of marketing, not only products or promoting a location or a hacienda, but also carrying the national flag and the banner of the country, keeping in mind that an airline is in fact the flag carrier of that country. And when that aircraft goes abroad, that country is actually visiting the other country. So it touches a lot on international ambassador ideas. And I think this one is also prelude on the accomplishment of the lunar landing, where we have now spacecraft up in air, and astronauts will be in space in small compartments and rotating around the globe, or doing visits to other planets or the moon in small capsules or spacecraft. And not only is this available to our generation, but it's becoming also commercialized. So it's not just accessible only to the elite, but it's also accessible to commercial travel. So those people that want to say, well, I want a tourism experience that is out of this world, people could actually fly to the orbit and experience weightlessness in a way that us terrestrial human beings are not able to experience, because we are confined by that phenomenal restriction called gravity.
Sure.
And so this is kind of a combination of all of those factors built into one. And I just really want to thank Will for bringing this topic to the forefront, because it's an amazing accomplishment of the people that conceptualized this marketing strategy that we even talk about many, many decades later.
Sure. Well, Julian, thank you for the recognition, but I think that was Derrick that really wanted to talk about this. I would love the idea of doing a whole episode on the idea of space travel, but to your point of being in that small capsule heading to space, you got to think about the R&D, the money that was put into it, the development, the science, the degrees that all went into putting astronauts in space. We're talking about a Cessna from the 40s.
Yeah. And you
A
got to
little
think
sardine can in the air with a couple of wings and
Yeah.
one motor up front.
and think
So-
about today, they do all these psyche valves. They probably didn't do anything like that.
No,
back
they
then.
went
Who wants
in.
to go? I'll do
No.
it. I'll go. And
Not
they
at
just
all,
went.
yeah.
And just went.
And Shae, we went around the table. So where would your mental space be after 64 days?
Yeah, I think that my brain would be shut off at that point. I love travel. I absolutely love travel. I've been literally I've been on some pretty crazy itineraries, like literally like Maine to Newark, Newark to Sao Paulo, and then Sao Paulo to Rio, and then back, and then all the way back again. I've done some pretty crazy itineraries. I think the most I've ever done is about 24 to 48 hours. And I was dead tired by the end of it. Still had fun. It was a great time. And it, nothing thankfully went wrong. But it was, by the end of that, you're done. I don't think that I would have been able to make it for
As a passenger.
64 days. Yeah, that's the thing,
24
and I'm
hours of
not
travel,
having
you're
to
You're
passenger.
flying.
You're not. There's no
Yeah, yeah,
brain
yeah.
power going into it. You're not flying this
Exactly.
airplane for
sleeping when
4
you
hours
can't,
at a time.
you know. Like,
And
Sleeping on a
with that,
mattress.
Julian mentioned Will. They're refueling this thing ground to air, pickup
Yeah.
truck
Yeah.
refueling.
Twice a day, they were flying about 20, 30 feet above the ground on an abandoned Nevada highway. They were matching these trucks. The airplane was obviously modified slightly to be able to accept the fuel. I read somewhere, this needs to be fact checked, that in the modifications of the airplane, they were even able to change the oil in flight in some way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Which I'd like to look a little bit more into. Should probably read up on that before starting a recording. But we think about the grand idea of just flying for 64 days straight, but as Julian mentioned, the logistics
Yeah.
that have to come into that, the ideas of we need to figure out what to do with this aircraft, how are we going to sleep on this airplane, and life in the air now isn't the most pleasant thing. You talk to pilots, there's these little bunks in behind the cockpit or living quarters, and it's not the most glamorous thing in the world. They stripped the interior of this 172, took everything out of it,
They'd have to,
leaving
yeah.
only the cockpit's chair, or excuse me, the captain's chair, and where the passenger seat would normally be. They left a thin mattress, had a small steel sink installed in the back for some personal hygiene, and a camping toilet. I don't know if any of you have ever gone camping, used a camping toilet before. It's not exactly the most pleasant thing in the world, not to use once, let alone to do it for 64 days straight.
Yeah.
No, and you know something too that I wanted to mention before we close.
Let's go fly over Lake Mead and dump the dump, I guess.
Something I wanted to mention, before we close is, it came to my mind every time I read about this, I think about how safety regulations then were not what we know of as safety regulations today. And I think the burning question for our listeners is, could you even legally do this now?
I wouldn't
Probably not.
think so.
Because there's, back then they're like, oh, you guys want to fly a Cessna and see how long you can fly it? Go for it. Now there's going to be a lot of questions.
Well, think about how little the FAA really involved themselves pre 9/11.
Yeah, I would imagine
if you were
that
good
if
enough
they
to fly
were
an
to
airplane,
allow
you were good
something
enough
like
to kind of
this.
do whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine if they were to allow something like this, it would be, one, not over any sort of population,
sure.
and then two, not in any sort of flight path. So that
Yeah, I mean, it would be so regulated now, it would be ridiculous. I mean, there would be so many regulations that you would not be able to literally do it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what an interesting tale there, man.
Yep.
That is some wild
I
stuff.
guess I have a question for the listeners and a question for you guys. Please answer if you feel so. If you were to go flying with intentions of beating this record tomorrow, you're taking off tomorrow, 65 days is your minimum. What aircraft would you choose? What kind of amenities would you bring along to make your 65 days in the air a little bit more pleasant?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think you would keep yourself mentally sane?
Are we going, since this is modern times, are we going propped aircraft or can we go private jets? I would go Cessna Citation.
Let's stick with prop. Let's go GA.
Gosh.
Is
Come on,
my
Derrick.
plane
Say
considered a
Piper
prop,
Cub.
even though it
You know you
faces
want to.
backwards?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the one that I love. Nice.
I mean, it's so funny because what's the plane that I love? This is the one we're talking about. So I guess I'd be rolling in a 172, boys.
Yeah, mine would be the Icon A5.
Julian, what would yours be?
Well, I'm going to be the rebel in the group. I'm not going to go for a turboprop or anything like that. I go for the Queen of the Sky, the 747, and deck it all out with a master bathroom suite, a full bathroom, a full kitchen, dining room. Oh yeah, just travel in class all the way. Shane, you know what I'm talking about. You did it many times.
I do.
So just get prepared and go all out. But I would, maybe I wouldn't do fueling from the ground. I do fueling from the air, and I
Yeah,
do
which we can now do.
yeah,
Thanks to the
and I would
military.
try to. I wouldn't limit it just to the Nevada Strip. I'd go maybe like see how many times you can go around the globe. Like maybe start on the West Coast and then go zigzag across the United States, and then go down to Latin America, and then hit over the Atlantic, South Atlantic, go through Africa, Asia, and then back down to the South Pacific and go up and down. And so in this way, you see a little bit more of our planet than just the Nevada Strip. So it's a little bit different, but I would definitely go with Klaus.
Julian's definitely going modern day times. I enjoyed it, guys. Great talk.
Yeah, me
Awesome.
too. Me too.
And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And Shae, all things History of Aviation podcast can be found in the description below. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we've
We're
got
on
the
all the things.
website. We're on all those things. You can get all that information in the description below, as well as links to all of Julian's stuff.
Yep.
And it was great.
Very cool.
For Will Diener. I said your last name, sorry. For Will D. So for Will D, Julien Martinson, Shae Jones producing, I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for listening to History of Aviation podcast.
All right.